She woke up in a strange room with an unexpected millionaire discover the incredible life-changing adventure waiting for her. Claire stirred, consciousness cutting through the fog of an unexpected celebration. The last thing she remembered was laughter and the warm glow of her friends around her, coaxing her to join one wild night out. Now sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a world far removed from the cramped diner and flickering lights of the convenience store. Panic clenched at her heart. She sat up, her eyes darting around the lavish penthouse, the lavish decor mocking her impoverished reality. Her breath caught as she noticed him, Jake, the handsome stranger sprawled on the bed, hair tousled, looking like he owned the entire city below. The world she'd been with just moments before melted away in the face of this million-dollar view. Claire's gut twisted. Her father had worked too hard for her to be in a place like this, always pulling the weight of debts due at the end of each month. And here she was, waking up in the lap of luxury. In disbelief, she flung herself out of bed, the plush carpet feeling foreign beneath her bare feet. Panic surged, feeling warmer than the sunny room. How did she get here? And more importantly, who was he? As if sensing her distress, Jake stirred, his eyes opening slowly, revealing an undeniable spark of charm but also a glimmer of arrogance. His voice was smooth, laced with amusement. "Good morning, sunshine. You look like you've just seen a ghost. Or a spoiled rich kid," she muttered, her shoulders pinching up in instinctive defense. She could almost hear the whispers of her dad's voice about the dangers of entitlement filtering back into her thoughts. The tension between them ignited, sending a current through the ambient silence. What a contrast! Jake, with his perfect life, a life of privilege she felt most at odds with, stood in direct opposition to her struggles. She couldn't help but feel infuriated at his nonchalance, the remnants of her father's hard work echoing in her mind. Still, something about him lingered, a veiled depth that was hinted at rather than revealed. Claire tried to shake it off, putting the distance of class between them like a barrier she could hide behind. But her insides were churning, the warmth of their brief exchange fanning a flame of interest she wanted to extinguish. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days unfolded like a wildflower blooming through cracks of concrete, Claire found herself reluctantly accompanying Jake to a community center not far from her father's house. Together, they prepared meals for homeless veterans. In those moments he peeled back layers she'd assumed about him, revealing a sincerity that anchored the disarray of their circumstances. He shared stories of his own family pressures, how he felt trapped under expectations, walls that felt painfully familiar. Though she resisted it fiercely, Claire's heart flipped, an undeniable spark igniting in the small acts of kindness they shared. Yet just as she started to unveil the feelings blossoming between them, a shattering truth loomed on the horizon. Jake's family was tied to developments that threatened her community plans aimed at erasing everything she loved and fought for. As anger surged forward, the distance between them narrowed. Their explosive argument laid bare long-hidden prejudices and fears, pain spilling into the open. In those moments strung together like beads on a thread, Claire stood poised before an abyss, her heart hammering in her chest, longing to bridge the chasm but also terrified of the leap. Could this connection with Jake survive the storm of echoes from their contrasting pasts? As Claire faced the precipice of an impossible decision, one question swirled in her mind. Would love be enough to challenge a fate written long before they ever met? Claire's heart raced as she stormed out of the community center, the weight of their argument still heavy on her mind. The sunlight felt blinding, taunting her with a beauty that clashed against her inner turmoil. She pushed through the door and stepped out into the street, her breaths coming in fast gasps, the ache in her chest growing with each stride. "Wait, Claire." Jake's voice echoed behind her, pulling at the fabric of her resolve. But she didn't stop. The confusion, the anger, it was all swirling like a storm inside her. And she needed air, needed space to think without his gaze lingering over her like a tangible weight. "Claire, please." He caught up to her, his voice now etched with worry. She could see it in his eyes, and part of her ached at how much she wanted to let him in. Just hear me out. She halted, turning to face him, their bodies separated by mere feet. Yet it felt like an entire world divided them. How can I? You have no idea what your family is doing to our community. The accusation sparked between them, raw and fierce. Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. I'm not my family. He took a step closer as if trying to bridge the gap. I didn't choose this life. I want to make a difference. By doing what? Erasing people's homes for your family's profits? The words burst from her like a dam breaking. Do you even understand? These things you call developments, they're destroying lives. For a moment, silence hung heavily in the air, both of them grappling with the weight of words unspoken. He opened his mouth to respond, but it was clear he was struggling to find the right things to say. Look, I get it. I really do, he finally murmured, his voice softer. But if you really think I don't care, if you think I'm part of the problem, because you are. Claire interrupted, her voice rising with urgency. It doesn't matter how great we get along. You're him. The one who will always choose wealth over everything else. Maybe you're right, he paused, the vulnerability in his gaze pulling her closer despite the anger simmering just beneath the surface. But I want to help. I can't sit by any longer and watch this happen. Not when there are other options. His words hung between them like a lifeline she was hesitant to grasp. Help? How? Your family won't allow it. I'm not my family, Claire. The fire in his voice ignited a flicker of uncertainty in her heart. Let me prove it to you. She shook her head, torn between the growing feelings and the realization of the wall she needed to build. You don't understand what it's like to fight for every cent, to see the toll this takes on families. I don't know what it's like, he admitted, heart open and exposed. But I want to understand. I want to be better. Can't we find a way? Claire felt her defenses start to crumble, the connection between them too strong to ignore. But just as the fragile hope sparked, a sudden commotion off to the side caught her attention. A small crowd had gathered. Voices rose in a mix of excitement and concern. What is happening? Claire pointed, feeling a shift in her gut. Jake's expression hardened. I don't know. Let us check it out. They moved towards the crowd, Claire's heart pounding louder now. What could possibly be changing in this moment? Would their connection survive this new challenge, or would it fracture like glass under pressure? All the while, one thought blared in her mind. What if this too would change everything? Claire squeezed her way through the gathered crowd, the buzz of voices edging her pulse higher. The faces around her were a mix of curiosity and anxiety, and she felt an inexplicable draw to the center. She needed to know what was happening. If there was a chance this event could shift anything away from the tension she felt with Jake as they neared the front. Claire's breath caught in her throat. A small platform had been erected near the old library. A man stood on it, a megaphone in hand. He was older, wild gray hair framing passionate features. She recognized him as Mr. Collins, a longtime community activist she had admired from afar. Everyone, please listen. He called out, his voice booming. We have a chance to save our neighborhood, our homes. This isn't just about development. It's about our future. Claire's heart thudded in her chest. Hope danced in her mind like the glow of fireworks. Was this the change they had been waiting for? The reprieve they desperately needed? A ripple of enthusiasm surged through the crowd. Mr. Collins, what do we need to do? Shouted someone at the back. He met their gaze, steely determination shining in his eyes. We need to come together. We can stage rallies, submit petitions, bring awareness. But most importantly, we need to confront those who would destroy our community without a second thought. Jake's hand found Claire's, squeezing it lightly. She looked up, seeing the fire in his eyes too, even amid the chaos. This is exactly what we need, he said, almost breathless. We can't be quiet anymore. Claire echoed, her heart fluttering again. Could they really be a part of this fight together, despite their differences? Even as she heard the words, doubt crept in alongside the optimism. What if it wasn't enough? What if it only ignited more backlash from Jake's family? Yet as the crowd began to chant their support, a thought struck her. What if they could change things together? Let us stand up for what's right. Mr. Collins continued passionately, receiving cheers from the multitude. Claire found herself swept up in the collective energy, the chants echoing around her, filling the spaces where doubt used to dwell. An unfamiliar warmth blossomed inside her, filling the void left by frustration. Together maybe they could do something. She felt Jake lean closer, his presence a grounding force amidst the commotion. But as the applause erupted and chatter spread excitement through the crowd, someone shouted a name: Jake Caldwell. Clara's stomach twisted. The tone was accusatory, the voice filled with animosity. Her heart sank. The crowd turned, and she could feel the tension shift. Faces darkened, fingers pointed. Aren't you part of the problem? Another voice raised, more aggressive this time. Jake visibly recoiled, the color draining from his face. Clara's grip tightened around his hand as she felt the weight of the accusation crashing down, like a wave threatening to swallow them whole. Let him speak, she shouted instinctively, but the moment felt fragile, hanging by a thread. Could Jake survive this, and what would it mean for their budding alliance? A swirling chaos threatened to pull them apart just as they were beginning to come together. A question loomed ominously in the air: would they weather this storm? Or was this the moment everything slipped away? Jake stood frozen, the stares piercing like arrows. He wore a mixture of shock and shame, and Claire could feel his pulse quickening through their linked hands. The weight of the crowd's judgment pressed down, and uncertainty clawed at her. Everyone, please. Mr. Collins' voice rose above the noise. Let's focus on the issue at hand. Yes, there are differences in our community, but that should unite us, not tear us apart. But the harsh whispers continued, relentless and unforgiving. Claire could see Jake's jaw tighten. He seemed to shrink under the barrage of accusations, and it hurt her to watch, to see him vulnerable in a way she hadn't before. For a moment her own doubts pushed through the cracks of her resolve. How could he possibly defend himself? How could they bridge the chasm that had suddenly opened between them? Jake, she urged softly, squeezing his hand, but the moment she turned to look at him, she saw the conflict in his eyes, a storm of fear and anger battling for control. He took a step back, pulling away from her grip, like he was trying to escape the weight of the world pressing in. Just give me a minute, he said quietly, his voice strained. He took a deep breath, raising his chin slightly as he prepared to confront the crowd. Claire could see the gears turning in his mind. Would he fight or back down? Before he could speak, the crowd began to quiet, drawn in by the uncertainty in his posture. Claire could feel the air shift, thick with anticipation. Listen, Jake finally said, his voice resonating with a surprising steadiness. I might be part of the family that's behind these plans, but I never wanted this. He pointed out into the crowd, looking fierce, determined. I love this place just as much as any of you do. My family might be making choices that I can't understand, but I want to help protect what we all cherish. Claire felt the fire reignite within her as hope began to spread. His words ignited a spark in the crowd, murmurs transforming into rumblings of support. Maybe they could shift this moment together after all. But even as cheers and shouts of approval echoed around them, doubt crept into Claire's mind again. Would they accept him, or would they see only the privilege of his last name? It was a dangerous place to tread, but Jake was stepping into the open. It was courageous. It was a chance. Thank you, Mr. Collins said, beard twitching as he nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. We need everyone on board. He turned back to the crowd, eagerly rallying support. But just then a voice erupted again, full of venom. You think we'll trust the likes of you? You're just trying to save face. The crowd turned once more. Hostility brewed like a dark cloud over them. Claire's heart raced, and she stepped forward instinctively, wanting to shield Jake from the venomous words. Enough, she yelled, the desperation of her voice breaking through. This isn't just about him. This is about us, our homes. We can make a difference. But it was too late. The tension had escalated again. She could feel the hearts of her community wavering, doubt and fear mingling with hope. Jake's eyes searched hers, filled with uncertainty but, beneath it all, a flicker of belief. In that charged moment, Claire realized they were on a precipice. The stakes were higher than she had understood when they began. They could either plunge into chaos or unite everyone into something powerful. Would this be the moment they found their strength together? Or was this simply the beginning of a deeper division? Taking a breath, Claire prepared for whatever came next, the pulse of the crowd echoing in her ears. The battle for their community had just begun, and how they each faced this moment might change everything. Jake stood at the heart of the crowd, the palpable tension vibrating around him like a live wire. Claire could see the way his hands trembled slightly at his sides, the way his chest rose and fell with each ragged breath. The crowd had shifted again, whispers echoing louder, and a knot of fear tightened in her stomach. Would this be the moment everything splintered apart? Listen carefully, Jake continued, his voice steadying. I don't expect all of you to believe me right away, but I don't want to hide behind my last name. I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. He gestured to the assembled faces, a mix of skepticism and flickering hope. Some of the crowd met his words with irritation, arms crossed defiantly. But Claire noticed those few who turned to each other, eyes alight with thought, eyebrows raised in consideration. It was subtle but powerful. She felt a wave of encouragement wash over her. Yeah, right. A woman called out from the back. You think you can just change our minds? What proof do you have that you actually care? That woman's voice cut through the air like a blade. Claire felt the fight swell within her again. We can't change minds overnight, but by standing together we can start a conversation. The woman sneered, but it didn't matter. Claire could see the glimmer of understanding spread through the crowd. Maybe they'd never been given a chance to talk, to connect as people instead of sides. Let us start small, Jake proposed, light bursting into his eyes. I won't promise you the world right now, but together we can protect what matters most. Let us begin with a neighborhood cleanup or a town meeting where everyone gets a voice, some buzzed in agreement, while others remain stoic. Yet still Claire felt it. A pulse of something real change felt possible. Then a man, standing tall with a furrowed brow, shouted, "And why should we trust you? You're still part of the system that's hurting us." Jake's response was immediate and raw. Because I want to break that system. He nearly shouted, urgency ringing in each word. I know I have privilege, but I'm willing to use it to help instead of harm. I am not my last name. The crowd shifted again, uncertain. Every heartbeat echoed potential. Would they believe him? However, before the wave of support could fully crest, a young girl, no older than 8, broke through the throng. She approached Jake, her small hand grasping a crumpled paper. If you really care, then help us, she whispered, her eyes large and honest. The silence that followed wrapped around them like a warm blanket, her innocence urging the adults to reconsider their hardened hearts. Tears threatened to spill from Claire's eyes. This was it. A chance for unity, a call to action that surpassed names and labels. With the little girl standing boldly in front of him, Jake knelt down to her eye level. You have my word, he whispered, sincerity pouring from his soul. I want to help, not just today but every single day. It was then that Claire noticed something shift in the audience. The anger began to thaw, replaced by hope laced with determination. As the crowd's face softened, a collective realization dawned. Change didn't stem from sitting back and letting others dictate the future. It came from standing together, arms linked by shared ideals. But just as the momentum began to swell, a heavy silence fell at the back of the crowd. Claire felt the air grow cold. Another figure emerged, one they hadn't counted on. Shadows seemed to dance behind him, darkening the mood once more. The real fight was just beginning, and it would take more than words to bridge the gap between them. Would Jake be strong enough to face what was coming? The crowd parted like water as the figure stepped into view. Claire's heart dropped. He was familiar. Someone from the very world Jake was trying to pull away from. It was Carter, a local businessman, known for his ruthless dealings and a flair for intimidation. His smile was slick, but the gleam in his eyes was anything but friendly. What's this? Carter called, his voice dripping with mockery. A little pep talk from the golden boy? Is this your idea of justice? A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd, uncertainty settling like a fog. Claire could see Jake's demeanor shift, the confidence he had built beginning to crack under the weight of Carter's presence. You have no idea what justice means, Jake replied, stepping forward, his earlier conviction faltering but still strong. You think power comes from intimidation, but it comes from real connection. Carter laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. Connection? With these people? They want nothing to do with you, Jake. They see you as a ghost of what they despise. You're a boy playing hero, but this isn't a fairy tale. You'll learn that lesson the hard way. The little girl's hand slipped from Jake's grasp, retreating a step, her earlier innocence shrouded by doubt. Claire felt a chill slide down her spine. It was as if Carter were a storm cloud moving in to snuff out the light Jake had ignited. "Enough!" Claire shouted, stepping between Jake and Carter, her heart racing. "Can't you see what you're doing? This isn't about you. People are tired of the divisions, tired of the hate. They're ready to change." "Ready?" Carter interrupted, a sneer forming on his lips. "Ready for what? More empty promises? You think they'll follow Jake's lead? They know the truth. You're just a puppet standing on a string. He's nothing but a last name trying to play savior." The tension climbed, thickening the air until it felt like every whispered question could shatter the moment. But Claire remained rooted, her eyes locked on Jake, seeking to reassure him amidst the chaos. "Don't listen to him, Jake," she urged softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You know who you are. You can't let him get to you. You have to believe they'll see your heart. Just keep talking." Jake took a deep, calming breath before he met Carter's icy gaze. "I'm not going to back down. We're tired of the cycles your kind create, the fear you spread. It's time for us to take back our voices." It was like a spark ignited. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, voices rising above the storm. Claire sensed a shift, an undercurrent of something more, a commitment to stand against the shadows Carter embodied. But just as morale surged, Carter raised a finger, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "You'll regret this, Jake. I won't let you dismantle everything I've built. If you think this is just words, you're mistaken. You're playing with fire." With that, he threw a glance over his shoulder and began to walk away, but not before casting one final glance back at the crowd. "Mark my words, this isn't over. I'll be watching." As silence hung in the air, Jake's shoulders fell, and Claire could see the burden of doubt creeping back into his determination. "I couldn't," he started, the weight of the expectation crashing down. But Claire stepped closer, putting a steadying hand on his arm. "You did what you needed to do. You showed them a choice, and that's more than what he can offer." Around them, faces shifted from uncertainty to resolve, the whispers growing louder. Change was on the horizon, but now the stakes were higher, and the shadows were closing in. Would they find the strength to stand firm against Carter's looming threat? Or would fear tip the scale back to a familiar darkness? Claire's heart raced as she recognized the true battle ahead, one that would challenge them all to the very core. Jake stood at the center of the crowd, his confidence beginning to flicker like a candle in the wind. Around them, the air was thick with tension, and Claire felt the weight of every pair of eyes on them. She could feel the hope teetering on a fragile edge, just as precarious as Jake's own steadfastness. "Do you really think we can take him down?" Jake's voice carried doubt, the challenge of facing Carter lingering heavily in his tone. "What if people start to turn back to fear? What if I can't make them believe?" Claire's heart ached at his vulnerability. "You can't think like that. You're showing them it's possible to stand up, to be brave," she encouraged. "Remember why you started this. You wanted a community where everyone felt safe and valued. That's enough to fight for." As she spoke, Claire felt an invisible thread pulling tighter, a connection unfurling between them, warming the chill. She glanced around and saw several faces she recognized. Neighbors, fellow parents, the old couple from down the street. They were all watching, listening. A woman in the crowd raised her voice. "We believe in you, Jake." It was a simple statement, but it rippled through like a spark igniting a fire. Others started to cheer him on, their voices rising in a chorus of support. Jake straightened, drawing strength from the crowd's encouragement. "If we unite, we can reshape our future. We are more than just pawns in this game." "Yeah," someone in the back shouted, urging Donnie, a young man from a tiny workshop, to join in. "I'll stand with you," Donnie yelled, stepping forward. "We all have had enough. No more fear." With that, others began to step beside Jake, a wave of solidarity shifting through the crowd. The once lingering fear began to dissipate, transforming into defiance. It was electric, the palpable energy igniting Claire's spirit as the crowd swelled with courage. But then, from the corner of her eye, Claire spotted a figure lingering at the edge of the periphery. Carter was still there, hovering like a shadow, watching with cool detachment. The unease returned, swirling in Claire's gut as she realized they weren't out of the woods yet. The cheers reached a fever pitch, but she could see the glint of something ominous behind Carter's facade, like he was formulating his next move, plotting. Can they withstand whatever he had schemed? In that moment Claire made a choice. You all have to be ready for anything, she said, her voice ringing out above the crowd. This is more than just words. We need to stand prepared for whatever comes next. We can't let him intimidate us. Jake's eyes sparkled with newfound determination, emboldened by the crowd's resurgence. Yet Claire could feel the storm approaching. The hope of the moment was bright, but darkness was looming just out of sight, ready to pounce, and then a thought shattered through her. What if he's not just watching? What if he's planning something? Her heart raced as the implications settled in. This wasn't just a battle of wills. There were stakes they hadn't yet fully grasped. It was real, and that reality danced dangerously close to the edge. Still, the moment shone bright with resilience. Claire clasped Jake's hand tighter, sharing a determined look with him. This wasn't just about standing up against Carter, it was about uniting so they could raise up their community together. But as the applause and shouts grew, an icy thrill slithered down Claire's spine. If Carter was determined to reassert his power, what exactly was next on his agenda? With every ounce of hope in her heart, Claire whispered, "We have to stay vigilant. This fight isn't over yet." As the crowd simmered in excitement, forging a new vision together, one question loomed heavy in the air. Would their newfound courage be enough against the darkness that was about to close in? Jake's voice broke through Claire's anxious thoughts. "We need a plan," he said, his brows knitted together. The crowd settled, their energy still buzzing, but now filled with a sense of purpose. "Right," Claire agreed, stepping forward. "We can't let Carter catch us off guard. Let us discuss what we know and what we can do. We have to be strategic." People began to murmur, some shifting their weight from one foot to the other, a mix of excitement and apprehension. After all this time they were finally standing together, united. But as Claire glanced back at Carter, the tendrils of fear wrapped around her heart again. This wasn't just about rallying the troops. They were about to face him again. "Okay," Jake said, switching into leader mode. "Let us gather ideas. What do we know about Carter's operations? What are his weak points?" A hand shot up from the crowd, and it was Miss Thompson, the schoolteacher known for her keen observations. "I've seen him cut funding to programs that create community events. He thrives on dividing us when we're vulnerable. If we can show people that we support each other, he loses control." "Yes," Claire exclaimed, feeling the hope swell. "We need to amplify those community connections. If we can counter his isolation tactics with gatherings, support networks, and spread the word," shouted a young woman from the back. "Let us use social media. Videos, posts, anything we can to rally people and spread positivity." The old couple nodded sagely, clearly inspired. "We can organize events. Picnics, neighborhood cleanups," the old man suggested, his voice steady yet eager. "We can show strength in numbers." A wave of energy rolled through the crowd at the thought. Ideas sprouted like wildflowers in spring, each blooming with potential. As people fed off one another's enthusiasm, Claire felt her heart lift, aerial views of teamwork and friendship flashing in her mind, a united front against the looming darkness. Yet something inside her twisted at the thought of Carter. What did he know? What were his moves? The unsettling feeling of being followed returned, and she was overwhelmed with a fleeting sense of dread. "Let us not underestimate Carter," Claire insisted, her voice suddenly sharp, cutting through the excitement. "He won't sit idle. If we're stirring things up, he's going to retaliate. We need to be prepared for his response." A hush fell over the crowd, the weight of her words piercing through the optimistic atmosphere. Jake met her gaze and nodded slowly. They were on the same team, but she could sense his frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "So we keep planning then. We speak out and act together." Suddenly, the air shifted as a strong gust blew past, rustling through the branches of nearby trees. The crowd shuffled, glancing nervously to where Carter still loomed at the edge, his face lost in shadows but steadfast in his posture. "He's not invincible," Jake continued, his voice gaining strength. "He's just one person. We're a whole community. We need to trust in each other." As many nodded in agreement, Claire squeezed Jake's hand, urging him to take a breath. He needed to hear that unity was their strongest weapon. Hope pulsed through her veins, but the apprehension loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to burst. "Tonight," she announced, catching everyone's attention again. We gather at the park. Let us make a plan, share ideas, and get everyone involved. Together we'll show Carter that we won back down. Cheers erupted once more, stronger than before. But the distance between them and the figure watching felt deeper, the chill still creeping into her lungs as the crowd dispersed to prepare. Claire lingered by Jake's side. "Promise me we'll stay cautious," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. He looked at her, searching for reassurance. "Promise. But we've also got to believe. Believing is our first step to winning." But just then, a noise echoed through the gathering twilight, a low rumbling that made Claire's heart race. Could it be? Was Carter making his move already? With the spotlight on their fragile dawn of resurgence, the air felt electric with possibilities. But what awaited them in the shadows was still uncertain. Would their hope and preparation be enough to fight back the storm? The park was alive with energy as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting an amber glow across the gathering. Families began arriving, their chatter mixing with the soft rustling of leaves. Claire stood at the entrance, a knot of nerves tightening in her stomach, yet every smile she saw seemed to ease it just a little. "Look, Claire. They brought food," a young girl shouted, darting through the crowd with a plate stacked high with cookies. Laughter erupted, the sound lifting her spirits even more as dusk settled. Claire watched as groups formed, people exchanging ideas like precious currency. Jake was in the thick of it, animatedly discussing plans with Miss Thompson and the old couple. The warmth of community was like a soft blanket against her fear. But Carter's shadow loomed in the back of her mind, a reminder of the storm brewing just outside their bound of joy. "Let us make this a safe space," Claire urged to a few people nearby. "If anyone feels uneasy or notices something strange, let us look out for each other. We can't let Carter disrupt what we're building here." Then a voice broke through her contemplation. "What if we formed a neighborhood watch?" It was Tom, a local mechanic, his face sincere. "We could take shifts and keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. Make sure no one feels alone." "That's brilliant," Claire exclaimed, her heart flickering with hope again. "Together we can make this work, keep an eye on the lookout for each other." It was evident that the idea sparked enthusiasm, and more hands started shooting up, each offering to help with logistics. The park lit up under strings of fairy lights, casting a shimmering glow. Laughter and playful shouts blended into the background noise, creating the perfect canvas of resilience. But in her chest the anxiety lingered, a chilling reminder of Carter's threats. Just as Claire turned to discuss with Jake, her phone buzzed viciously in her pocket. She pulled it out, heart racing. It was an anonymous message. "I see what you're planning. Don't underestimate the fallout." The words were short, but they sent a jolt of panic straight to her core. "Claire, you okay?" Jake's voice pulled her back to the moment. She forced a smile, shaking her head as she dismissed the worry. Just a reminder of what we're up against. That's all," she said softly, tucking her phone back in her pocket. "We need to keep spirits high, Jake. This is our moment to show Carter he can't tear us apart." "We will," Jake replied, looking deeply into her eyes. "But you need to be careful. If you feel anxious, talk to me, okay? We can't get lax because of the good vibes." Nodding, she noticed people milling around, the community settling in for the night, intent on building something greater than themselves. Was it enough, though? As the gathering continued, Claire caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of her eye, motioned by the trees bordering the park. A figure. Her heart plummeted. "Jake," she called, panic slicing through her resolve as she squinted in the dim light. The figure seemed to slip away, disappearing into the shadows, but tension gripped her chest. "Did you see that?" she breathed, anxiety bubbling over. She felt the need to gather people around, safety in numbers. "What?" Jake looked, but the figure had vanished. They exchanged worried glances. It wasn't just them against Carter anymore. There were apparitions in their own backyard. As the laughter continued, Claire felt the tension creep back in, almost suffocating. "Maybe we're not prepared for what's to come," she whispered to Jake, the words tasting sour on her tongue. "Relax. Just stay close to me," he replied. But even as he spoke, she could feel the crowd's energy shifting. The night stretched on, but every cheer felt laced with uncertainty. Their strength was growing, but so was the shadow hovering in the corners of the park. What was Carter planning? Would the night end in celebration or terror? With those thoughts swirling in her mind, Claire knew the battle was just beginning, and they had to be ready not just for resistance, but for anything the shadows might yield. The park was alive with anticipation, the air tinged with a mix of electric energy and palpable anxiety. Families held hands as they settled to share hopes and plans, but Claire felt the weight of an unseen threat tightening around her like a vice. After all, tonight was meant to be a celebration of unity, yet shadows loomed like dark clouds overhead. "Stay close," Jake whispered, his warmth a flicker of comfort against the swelling tension. They stood side by side, watching as the community filed in, laughter creating a backdrop to their own silent fears. "Tonight marks the beginning," he continued, turning to her, his gaze steady. "We've ignited something here. Just remember we're not alone." His words rang true as Claire glimpsed familiar faces among the crowd, the young girl with her cookies, Miss Thompson with her wise smile, even the old couple from down the street waving proudly at the camaraderie forming around them. But with every chuckle and cheer, Claire couldn't shake the chilling reminder of Carter lurking outside the warmth of their gathering. Who knew what scheming he was conjuring in the dark? As the sun slipped lower, Claire suggested setting up an open mic for the community to share their stories. "Everyone's struggles matter," she said, her voice rising above the chatter. "Let us reveal our common ground." People nodded, inspired by the idea. Moments later, Miss Thompson jumped in, rallying attendees to share their thoughts while others began gathering food, laughter bubbling like spring water. But it was later, as twilight deepened, that Claire felt an unsettling shift. The crowd quieted as Jake took the stage, a surge of courageous determination radiating from him. "Tonight we stand together not just for ourselves, but for every family that has been silenced," he declared, eliciting claps that echoed like rolling thunder through the park. "We can protect our homes from those who would tear us apart." Yet, Claire's heart raced in tandem with an unsettled flutter in her stomach, a hunch that something was boiling beneath the surface. She caught fleeting movements near the tree line, the hairs on the back of her neck prickled, her instincts urging her forward. "Jake," she called, adrenaline surging through her veins. "We need to stay vigilant, something feels off." Just then the crowd's laughter dulled, engulfed by a heavy looming silence. Out of the thick shadows a familiar figure emerged, Carter, with his signature smirk, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Is this a community meeting or a circus?" he taunted, stepping into the dim light with deliberate malice. "You really think you can rally this bunch against me?" The crowd bristled at his presence, a collective discomfort rising like bile in the air. Claire's chest constricted. "We stand united, Carter. You won't silence us," she shouted, her voice ringing with fierce defiance. But Carter merely laughed, a chilling sound that made Claire's skin crawl. "Unity? You really believe they will follow a lead from a privileged boy like Jake? Your words are empty." He gestured widely, his contempt bolstering a wave of unease. Murmurs of derision flared through the crowd, questioning Jake's will. "Stop," Claire yelled, stepping forward to control the narrative. "His privilege doesn't define his heart. We are more than our backgrounds, this is about a common future." The crowd shifted, eyes darting between Claire and Carter. Jake, seeing the moment teeter and sway, stepped up with renewed vigor. "You're wrong, Carter. Families across this town have a voice. We've fought too long in silence." His confrontation sparked something in the crowd, a light igniting courage in their hearts. But Carter smirked, eyes glinting with opportunism. "What, you think they'll follow you into battle? This is a losing game." A stillness filtered into the air, but Claire sensed the tide shifting. "You don't know our will," she said fiercely. "Every person here has faced their struggles. Their fight is my fight. We won't back down." Just as that determination blazed brightly, Carter took a step back, his facade of confidence wavering. "Be careful what you wish for. I will destroy everything you care about." It was a threat that struck deep, but Claire could see something in Jake's stance that stirred hope, a resolution dawning in his expression. "This isn't just a community. This is family," Jake declared, voice unwavering. "And together we'll face whatever darkness comes. Your intimidation only strengthens our resolve." With newfound strength, Claire could feel the crowd surge in synchrony. Every whisper turned into a resounding cheer, energy palpable as anger and resilience collided against Carter's biting taunts. That moment felt monumental. igniting flames of solidarity that no mere threat could extinguish. "Let us gather outside and march against his plans," shouted a voice from the crowd, excitement blooming like wildflowers across the field. "Our togetherness is unstoppable." With that, Jake grabbed Claire's hand, an unyielding promise passing between them. They stepped toward the crowd, voices roaring with shared hope. The shift was palpable as people mobilized, fueled by determination to stand for their homes and their future. As they moved towards the planned march, Claire's heart swelled with pride. Together they were weaving a tapestry of strength, interlacing every struggle, every laugh, every heartfelt story. Underneath the stars they marched as one, a beacon of hope and solidarity piercing through the shadows. And as they raised their voices in unison, Claire knew this was their moment. They would not let fear define them, they would rewrite their narrative. Side by side with Jake and a community behind them, they were ready to take back their home. And so began the fight against the storm, not in despair, but in a united defiance that promised a brighter tomorrow. Now more than ever we need to rally together. You need to subscribe now to stay connected and witness more incredible stories like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button immediately. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this journey and how it inspires you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Join our community because together we can make a difference.